thank you, Byron, and to the governor and Stephanie and Harold and all of you for turning out today. What a great day to be here. This is actually the first monument I've seen unveiled, or well, to be seen unveiled. Memorable events with speakers, flags, and a fair bit of ceremony. And so here we are today in beautiful Cornish to celebrate the dedication of Saint-Gaudens standing Lincoln in a manner, as we've seen so far, befitting the best of this type of event. When Saint-Gaudens' original bronze Lincoln was unveiled in Chicago in 1887, 10,000 people arrived at Lincoln Park on foot in streetcars and carriages. While we may be hundreds and not thousands strong today, we definitely have that event beat in the weather department. It was pouring rain, so a heat we can take. Rain would be not so good. And we also have no horses that will be spooked by the 38-gun salute that took place mid-ceremony, and these two horses stampeded wildly through the crowd. So that will not happen today. Well, back in 1887, there were many, you might say many speeches and proclamations made by people who were sitting up front. But one man up there did not speak. He was quiet, and some might say a shy person, and he preferred to let his art speak for him. In fact, he found monument unveilings to be quite nerve-wracking affairs because he was keenly aware that bronze sculptures were meant to last for the ages. And today, I'd just like to tell you a bit about that man, the sculptor Augustus Saint-Gaudens, and how he came to create the standing Lincoln. Well, he embodies the best American success story. He was the son of a French father and an Irish mother, born in Dublin, Ireland in 1848, and he immigrated to this country as an infant. He grew up in New York City and had just a grade school education, but plenty of charisma, drive, and raw talent. And he, as an immigrant, rose to become the greatest sculptor our country had yet to produce, and of course, I would say, unbiasedly, ever produced. His public monuments in Boston, New York, and Chicago memorialize the heroes and martyrs of the Civil War, and it's true that several of these monuments are here on site as well. And his art, at the time, served a very public means of healing a devastated nation and continues to resonate to this day in Cornish and around the world. Well, as we've heard from Rick, Cornish has a starring role in the story of Saint-Gaudens and the standing Lincoln. Rick mentioned how he arrived in Windsor, Vermont by train in the summer of 1885 with his wife, young son, brother, a studio assistant, and a dog or two. Tired and dusty, he would have crossed that wonderful covered bridge over the river to Cornish and encountered this glorious place. And he began work on his statue, as we know, having been assured plenty of Lincoln-shaped men lived here. And that, of course, came true in the form of a farmer named Langdon Morse, 6'4" and lanky, just like Lincoln himself. But a model is only a starting point, and Saint-Gaudens brought his own personal memories to bear on his portrait of Lincoln, because he had actually seen him twice as a teenager in New York City. First in 1861, when as president-elect, Lincoln rode in a carriage down Fifth Avenue. And years later, Saint-Gaudens remembered, as he said, a tall and very dark man, seemingly entirely out of proportion in his height with the carriage in which he was driven, bowing to the crowds on each side. And then Saint-Gaudens saw the president again, this time in April 1865, when the body of the assassinated president lay in state at City Hall. Saint-Gaudens waited in an endless line, and what did he do after he saw him? He went through that line again. This, as he said, completed his vision of the big man. We also know that Saint-Gaudens was familiar with Lincoln's speeches and writings, not to mention widely circulated photographs. Of course, it was long before social media as we know it, but every American was familiar with Lincoln's physical appearance and signature character traits. Well, it's hard work, as any artist would tell you, to produce a portrait that's both an accurate likeness and a projection of personality. With the standing Lincoln, Saint-Gaudens succeeded splendidly. In this sculpture, as you will soon see, Lincoln stands tall and motionless with his head bowed. At that moment, he's not a man of action, but a man of introspection, deep in thought about the burdens and responsibilities of his office. His left hand grasps the lapel of his coat, and his right is clenched in a fist behind his back. And there are plenty of other realistic touches too. My favorite are the rolling, perhaps bit rumpled folds of the vest that he's wearing. And what about that chair behind him? Well, that is not just any chair. It's not the chair he just got up from. It's the chair of state, and it's deliberately oversized to stress the power of the presidential office and the gravity of this political moment. Emblazoned with an American eagle and our nation's motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, the chair serves a symbolic, not a functional purpose. And there's one more element in this sculpture, and that's the audience that gathers in front of Lincoln and waits for him to lift his head to speak. And in just a few minutes, when we all assemble in front of the bronze and the drape is removed, we will all become part of this sculpture's narrative. Lincoln will speak to us, and then, as now, his message will be honest, sympathetic, and inclusive. So it is entirely fitting that we're here today to celebrate the dedication of this sculpture in Cornish. It really is a full circle homecoming, a journey 131 years long with many participants. As we've heard from Stephanie, the process of sculpture making is complicated, to say the least, and many people have contributed to bring this moment to fruition, from the foundry workers in Arizona to Brian Griffin and his Park Service conservation staff across the country, to our generous founders, to Governor Hassan and many New Hampshire legislators. And I actually would like to pay a special tribute today to someone sitting here who had the bright idea to create a recast of the Standing Lincoln, and that's Henry Duffy, who's curator of the Saint-Gaudens National Historic Site, and I think probably knows Saint-Gaudens better than he knew himself. So to Henry, Rick Kendall, and all the staff of the site, thank you so much for bringing this sculpture home. It's going to remind us, and of course the generations of future visitors to the park, of the towering contribution that our 16th president made for personal equality, and how that's so successfully expressed in the permanent medium of bronze.